So don't dismiss me like that. That's not fair. That's not fair. I deserve better than that. You and Derek Chisora, who asked me to stop training you, hence why me and you parted. Yeah, now he's with you, one of the cheerleaders. Chisora, this is. If you know what these people have done to me, yeah, shameful. And all I've done for all of them is of good, yeah?
Don Charles's frustration reflects just how let down he feels. For close to 2 years, he worked with Dubois, steering him through 8 important bouts. Yet Daniel seemed to value their partnership only in terms of money, showing little gratitude toward the mentor who helped shape his career. To Charles, this situation was never about finances. It was about the lack of respect.
Shaking it off.
That's their opinion. That's what they're seeing. That's what they want to say. Who am I to tell them that they're on, how can I put it, conclusion to that?
Don Charles's anger comes with reason. For Dubois to dismiss him as bad luck is nothing short of disrespectful. This is the trainer who guided him to 7 victories, helped refine his style, and supported him in tough moments. Instead of showing loyalty, Daniel chose to place blame. It wasn't misfortune. It was a fighter refusing to take accountability.
Hi, I'd like to thank Don Charles for the hard work and effort he's put into me over the last 18 months. But now, I feel like I need a fresh change and a new start for this next phase of my career, where I look to become 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. God bless.
Joseph Parker's reaction mirrors the disappointment many fans share. Don Charles was treated unfairly after dedicating years of effort and guidance, only to be pushed aside without thanks. His frustration goes deeper than personal feelings. It's about principle. Don provided Daniel with structure and direction, but what he received in return felt like betrayal. It's no surprise his words now carry such bitterness.
Little thing can throw you off track.
That
right?
is not a little thing.
Could you imagine? No, can you imagine going through that?
Yeah. No.
And the problem is, it's coming from someone that he looks out of the ring when they're talking. It's coming from his dad. Obviously, I've trained with him. His dad's a huge part of his life. So that is obviously going to be disruptive.
Are you surprised by this, Jeff? I am very surprised. Yeah. Shocked.
Johnny Nelson points to a deeper problem. Don Charles was never truly given full control of Dubois' camp, with Daniel's father often interfering and limiting his authority. Even under those circumstances, Don still managed to deliver victories. That's why his frustration now cuts so deep. He worked under restrictions, produced results, and in the end was cast aside without respect.
I don't think Don was a captain of that ship. I think the captain of the ship was the dad. So now, whoever Daniel goes to, it needs to be a strong coach to say, Dad, out. I'm training you. You hired me to train your son. That's my job. You don't come and mess up my work. I don't think Don was strong enough or in a position enough to actually say that. So let's see in a year's time.
Sam Jones acknowledges that Don Charles did an outstanding job, and that's impossible to deny. His relentless work guided Dubois through key fights, but instead of appreciation, Don was pushed aside. His anger isn't simply bitterness, it's a call for recognition. Don played a major role in shaping Daniel's career, yet in the end, he was treated as if he were replaceable.
Just put out a statement out in regards to his situation with Don Charles. Don Charles has done a fantastic job for Daniel, but Daniel's decided that he needed a change, and that's what's happened.
Dominic Ingle puts it bluntly. Too often, fighters use their trainers and then discard them when things go wrong. That's the reality of Don Charles's story with Dubois. Don provided victories, guidance, and confidence, yet what he received in return was blame and disrespect. His frustration is completely understandable, as Daniel showed little loyalty or gratitude to the man who helped shape him.
Choose you. Fighters choose you. Then they use you to get where they need to be. Then they accuse you when everything goes wrong, and when they've left and gone somewhere else, then they start to abuse you by doing interviews slagging you off.
Ben Davison offered a respectful take on Tony Sims stepping into the role, but the reality is clear. No trainer knew Daniel Dubois the way Don Charles did. For nearly 2 years, Don studied every detail of his fighter, from the jab to defensive, weaknesses to the mental side of the game. What he provided went far beyond pad work. It was mentorship forged through countless hours of effort. Instead of valuing that bond, Dubois treated it as something disposable, swapping loyalty for convenience when adversity hit. Don's anger isn't about losing a corner job, it's about the betrayal of having built a fighter's identity only to be cast aside. You can bring in Sims, Davison, or anyone else, but the real test comes when pressure mounts again. Don already proved his worth by guiding Dubois to 7 victories. In 8 fights, the truth remains. Loyalty can't be replaced, and Daniel may learn that the hard way.
Tony will have his own ideas, you know, I'm not sure. But I'm sure, you know, he'll have some ideas of what he'd like to implement with Daniel. He's an experienced guy, worked with heavyweights before, a lot of time with AJ and that, so...
Dominic Ingle doesn't mince words. Blaming trainers has become a pattern, and Dubois is caught in it. Right now, he and those around him believe that removing Don Charles is the solution. But boxing doesn't work that way. At some point, every fighter must look in the mirror and admit, the responsibility is mine. Don Charles already proved his value, guiding Dubois to 7 wins out of 8 and helping shape him from a prospect into a contender. Instead of appreciating that, Daniel pushed him aside, hoping a new trainer could magically erase his weaknesses. But that's not how champions are built. Don's frustration comes from seeing a fighter run from accountability. A coach can guide, prepare, and refine, but he can't put heart into someone. Until Dubois accepts that reality, the blame game will continue, and Don Charles will keep being treated as the scapegoat. His anger is justified.
Once you start beating guys of that level, you're there or thereabouts for the world title fights. And I think our goal this time next year would be to be boxing for a world title.
And the thing is with like British or European title fights, even if a fighter is that good, there's still belts you kind of want on the mantelpiece, right? There's still belts that you can appreciate even if they are stepping stones in quotes.
David Haye tried to frame the split as things simply going stale, but the reality is different. This was scapegoating. Don Charles gave Dubois stability, structure, and belief. He wasn't just a pad holder, he was shaping a fighter's mindset and keeping him competitive on the big stage. It's worth remembering that under Don's guidance, Dubois was winning. The setbacks only came against elite opposition. Instead of valuing that, Daniel chose to blame Don and move on. That's why Don's frustration runs so deep. After investing so much energy into Daniel's career, he was met with disrespect and dismissal. If Dubois truly lost faith in Don, it says more about Daniel's insecurity than Don's ability. Trainers don't suddenly forget how to coach. It's fighters who lose the willingness to listen. Right now, Daniel looks like someone avoiding responsibility rather than seeking guidance, and that's why Don's anger feels both raw and justified.
You know, a lot of fighters after they have a loss want to sort of jump to a different coach. Maybe thinks things have got stale. Maybe wants to change, and I hope he finds what he's looking for. Obviously, Don wasn't. He lost confidence in what he was bringing to the table. So hopefully, whoever he works with, he gets that additional confidence because he's got a great ability.
Amir Khan talks about fresh starts, but that only makes sense when the problem lies with the training camp. With Dubois, the issue isn't the coach, it's the fighter. Don Charles guided him to 7 victories, built his fundamentals, and stood by him in high-pressure situations. If Dubois faltered, that wasn't Don's failing. It was a lack of mental toughness on Daniel's part. Khan mentions confidence. Yet it was Don who cultivated that confidence from the ground up. Without his guidance, Dubois was raw power without discipline. Don's frustration is entirely justified. He invested time, belief, and expertise only to be met with disrespect rather than gratitude. No new trainer can erase the fact that Dubois hasn't owned up to his shortcomings. Don's removal wasn't about development. It was about a fighter avoiding accountability.
Maybe there was something that he wasn't happy with in that camp. And as a fighter, some fighters have to do that. Maybe he needs that fresh start again. He needs someone new in his ear. Someone to push him to get that confidence back as well. When you hear it from a different trainer and you hear that you're doing great and you're a great fighter and you're back on top again, that confidence makes a big difference. You know what I mean? Knowing that.
Gareth A. Davies sums it up perfectly. Don Charles did nothing wrong in the Usyk fight. That bout showcased Usyk's brilliance, not Don's failures. How can a coach be blamed when his fighter is facing one of the greatest heavyweights of the era? Don had Dubois prepared, but even the best preparation can't completely overcome elite talent. Yet instead of taking responsibility for the loss, Daniel and his camp chose the easier path, blaming the trainer. That's why Don's anger is so intense. He invested time, ran a disciplined camp, and supported his fighter, only to be made the scapegoat. Dubois' actions reveal immaturity. cutting loose the man who shaped his style instead of showing respect. Don's frustration is justified. He wasn't removed for incompetence. He was sacrificed for excuses.
Don Charles, you know, it's a shame that he's got the chop. I thought he was very good for Daniel Dubois. He didn't do anything wrong in that contest with Alexander Usyk. It was Dubois' performance. I thought, again, it was down to Usyk's brilliance on the night.
Paul Smith points out something many have suspected for years. Dubois lacks the grit when the pressure is on. That's not something a trainer can create in a gym. Don Charles provided structured discipline and guided him to 7 wins in 8 fights. But the determination to push through adversity has to come from the fighter himself. Don's anger isn't about a single poor performance. It's about investing years into a fighter who failed to value him. Instead of owning his mistakes, Dubois turned away from the man who supported him through every high and low. That's betrayal at its core. Don's fury now reflects years of loyalty wasted on a fighter who measured everything by convenience rather than commitment. Paul is right. The problem wasn't the coaching, it was Dubois' mentality. Don Charles has every reason to express his frustration publicly.
I think it's beyond saving with him. I think whenever the fight gets hard, we've seen it proven more than once now. He doesn't seem to have that fortitude, that grit, that desire, that mentality of, you're not beating me, I'm going to stick in this and I'm going to outlast you, and that's what.
What do you mean by that?
Needed.
I mean, he dug in deep against Hrgovic, didn't he?
He dug in deep against Hrgovic, but then we saw it in the Joyce fight, it wasn't there. We saw it in the first Usyk fight. I felt he could have got up. In the last fight, I felt he could have got up. As soon as the referee got to 10, he gets up and he walked back to him.
Duke McKenzie emphasizes the most painful part of this split. Don Charles knew Daniel Dubois inside and out. He understood his mechanics, mindset, and how to bring out his best. That kind of insight isn't built overnight. It comes from countless hours in the gym and under the lights. Don wasn't just a coach. He shaped Dubois' style and guided him to success. For Dubois to dismiss him now shows a shocking lack of respect for someone who gave him so much. Don's anger comes from this very lack of appreciation. He provided structure, victories, and guidance. Yet Daniel measured the relationship only by short-term outcomes. Duke calls it a grave mistake, and he's right. Not because Don needs Daniel, but because Daniel desperately needed Don. Letting him go isn't just betrayal, it's a form of self-sabotage by Dubois.
Kid inside out, he knows how he works. He knows all the mechanics behind that kid and how to motivate and get the best out of him. We've seen it. And to get rid of him now at this point, I think it's a bad move.
I agree with you. I think anyone that's going to work with Dubois, obviously no secret. I don't know his dad. I've never met his dad, but it's obviously no secret that his dad is a heavily influential person in the camp, in the team, man.
At this stage, the story is clear. Don Charles was never given the respect he deserved. For nearly 2 years, he poured everything into Daniel Dubois: strategy, technical refinement, and above all, belief. He guided Dubois to 7 wins in 8 fights, built his reputation as a heavyweight contender, and stood by him even when critics doubted. How did Dubois repay that loyalty? By treating Don as if he were replaceable, a tool to be used and discarded rather than a mentor to be valued. Don's anger comes from betrayal, not money or contracts, but from seeing their bond reduced to mere convenience. The moment adversity struck, Daniel turned his back. That's why Don is so furious. He invested his heart and soul into a fighter who never truly appreciated it. The harsh truth: trainers like Don Charles don't just teach punches, they shape careers. Dubois may think a new coach will fix everything, but when the pressure returns, he'll realize what he lost. Don was more than a coach. He was the foundation, and Daniel has broken that bond forever. That's a wrap for today's breakdown. Be sure to stay tuned for more fight analysis, updates, and insider insights from the boxing world. We'll see you next time.